Hey everyone, Mr. Harvey here. Let's continue our lecture, and we are on chapter 12, ladies and gentlemen. And today I want to talk about British reform, ladies and gentlemen, during the 1800s, the 19th century. Now, in chapter 12, ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about our major isms, right? Conservatism, liberalism, nationalism. And as we saw in the previous lecture, ladies and gentlemen, the conservative order, Metternich, and a lot of the conservative leaders, there was a lot of challenge to conservatism coming from nationalism and liberalism. We talked about the revolutions, right, in Serbia, in Greece, right, in Belgium, right, nationalism, liberalism was just everywhere. We saw the same thing in Russia, right, liberalism, nationalism in Poland, Italy. These isms are all there. Now, in particular, I want to talk about how Great Britain is going to deal with these isms, ladies and gentlemen. And it's really important to understand this because there's two countries where we're going to see revolution really not take hold, and one is going to be Russia. Even though we kind of saw the Decembrist revolt, we're not going to see like a full-on fledged revolt in Russia, not until we see the Russian Revolution, the Communist Revolution. But another country that we're really not going to see full-scale revolution is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, in Great Britain. And I want to talk about why, and it's because they're the British Reform. So let's get into it. Okay, so just a quick review, ladies and gentlemen. In Great Britain, right, we have Parliament. Parliament's in charge, and we have two major parties in Parliament. We have the Tories, which are conservative, and then we have the Whigs, which are liberal. Okay, really important. But also, something else that's really important for us to understand about Great Britain during this time, ladies and gentlemen, is that Great Britain is ahead. Now, we saw immediately in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars with the Congress of Vienna, Great Britain with Lord Liverpool, was very reactionary and kind of uncharacteristically locked down, was very conservative. We're going to see that change pretty quickly in Great Britain, kind of again be that progressive, forward-thinking nation that we have seen it throughout this class so far. Okay, so in Great Britain in the 1830s, in the 1840s, in the 19th century, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, liberalism and nationalism, aren't just gonna completely avoid Great Britain. No, those entities are going to be visiting Great Britain as well. And we're going to see in 1830 the election of a House of Commons that is going to debate a major bill and major reforms in Parliament and for the British government. And what we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is Great Britain is going to be dealing with these problems of liberalism, of nationalism through reform, not revolution. And that's the major point I'm trying to get at. We're not going to see major revolution, fighting chaos that we've seen in other countries, that we're going to be seeing in other countries. It's not going to get to Great Britain. Why? Well, Parliament's going to solve it. Parliament's going to see the problems. Parliament's going to hear the people, and boom, and take care of it with laws and reform. Okay, and that's going to be evidenced and illustrated, ladies and gentlemen, in this great reform bill of 1832. Very important for us to understand, ladies and gentlemen, because this is just illustrating and an example of Great Britain dealing with the isms of liberalism and nationalism through reform, through Parliament, through legislation, not necessarily through revolution and fighting and rioting. Okay, so this great reform bill of 1832. Okay, so let's talk about some factors that are going to influence reform in Great Britain and influence Great Britain passing this legislation. Number one is the rising commercial and industrial classes from the Industrial Revolution could not be ignored. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, by ignoring the workers, ignoring the entrepreneurs, ignoring the people who want change, who need change, that would hurt Great Britain's prosperity. And the Industrial Revolution, Great Britain, and this is really important to understand about Great Britain, ladies and gentlemen. Great Britain, and this is a reason why they're going to get out of the Congress system. This is a reason why we're going to see them kind of detached from the continent, ladies and gentlemen, is Great Britain is so focused on making money, expanding its empire, and it really wants to make sure that it can do this in a way, but also they don't want to have revolution at home. So they're going to be taking care of the workers. Okay, they're going to be taking care of businessmen and businessmen, not women per se, because women aren't really involved in business totally just yet. But they're going to be really taking helping the economy. Really important for us with Great Britain. Okay, we're going to see a resurgence in liberalism within Parliament with the Whigs. Okay, British law, tradition, public opinion all showed respect for civil liberties, and we've known this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, traditionally, Great Britain, from the Magna Carta to the English Bill of Rights, Great Britain has been out ahead of other countries, and when it comes to protecting liberties, freedom of speech, even before the Enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen, right? With Voltaire, before that, Great Britain was advocating for these things and had a civil war over these things. All right, separating power. We saw that in the 1600s with the English Civil War. So really important for us to understand that the British have had a tradition of respecting civil liberties. But really important, ladies and gentlemen, 4 and 5, Liverpool in the new Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, knew that this was a changing world, and they believed that the world was changing, and they had to change with it. And this is really just showcases, ladies and gentlemen, Great Britain's understanding the times, understanding that things are changing. The Industrial Revolution is going on. Liberalism and nationalism are here to stay, and they understand that Europe has changed since Napoleon and the French Revolution. They understand that, and Great Britain understands that in order to survive, they have to change as well, which is really important. Also, number 5, ladies and gentlemen, is Great Britain is determined to keep Ireland within the United Kingdom, and this is kind of showing them staving off nationalism. There are nationalists in Ireland who are like, we don't want to be part of the United Kingdom, and Great Britain wants to maintain that union with Ireland. Just because they want to keep Ireland. Ireland is so close. It could be. They were very worried, ladies and gentlemen, during the French Revolution, that if Ireland were to break away from the UK, that Napoleon could go to Ireland and have a quick and easy staging point for invasion. So they want to maintain this for political reasons, social reasons, economic reasons, but also military reasons. Okay, maintain that union with Ireland. Okay, so let's talk about, ladies and gentlemen, some of the major reforms, ladies and gentlemen, with Lord Liverpool. And he's going to allow for greater economic freedoms. Okay, he's going to repeal those combination acts that had prohibited labor organizations. Very, very, very important. And just to give you all some context too, with what's going to be going on with Ireland. Remember, in 1800, Ireland in the Act of Union became part of Great Britain. However, a big problem within that, ladies and gentlemen, was that only Protestants were allowed to sit in the House of Commons. And Ireland, ladies and gentlemen, is mainly Roman Catholic, and so many, the Irish felt that they were being religiously discriminated against, which they were. And that just by allowing the Protestants in Parliament, that didn't really allow for Ireland to have a true voice in Parliament. So there's going to be a major change, which is the Catholic Emancipation Act, which was allowed for Catholics to be in Parliament, and this was passed in order to keep Ireland within the United Kingdom. And this was led by Daniel O'Connell. This greatly divided the Tories. But if Great Britain wanted Ireland to stay within the United Kingdom, then they had to allow Catholics to be in Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. So this was a very divisive issue, but this was passed in order to keep the Irish within the United Kingdom. And just to kind of go back to this right here, ladies and gentlemen, with Lord Liverpool repealing the Combination Acts, which prohibited labor organizations, that's targeted, and this is, I want you to highlight this and understand this, that's targeted for workers, helping workers. We haven't gotten quite into this, but child labor laws, work hours. I mean, we're gonna see a lot of changes within that, ladies and gentlemen, which I'm going to be talking about. But working conditions are terrible for the workers, and unless Great Britain wants a full-on riot with the workers or a full-on revolution, their own sans-culottes revolution, they need to help those workers out because they are suffering. Kids are suffering. They're working really hard. They're not making a lot of money. And those workers are upset, and Great Britain sees that. They acknowledge that. They're going to make some changes in order to, again, prevent revolution. Very important. Okay, so let's talk about this great reform bill, ladies and gentlemen. It was led by the Whigs. The leader of this was Earl Grey. Many of you all might know the famous T. Okay, and Earl Grey is going to be tasked by the king, ladies and gentlemen, to reform the government. And the Great Reform Bill, ladies and gentlemen, had 2 major goals. Okay, very important for us to understand. Okay, number 1 was to replace these rotten boroughs, areas that had few voters, and to give greater representation to manufacturing districts and cities. So what I mean by this is to expand the voters, expand the number of representatives, and to expand the electorate. And that's kind of the second one, is to allow, ladies and gentlemen, for more people, especially the working class, to have a voice and representation in Parliament. So they're having more representatives from these manufacturing districts and cities, and they're also allowing these people in these areas to vote. Okay, very important. So they're expanding the electorate, and if they're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing some democracy here. Okay, this is very much democratic. Okay, expanding the electorate, giving more representation to these people, all right, these workers especially, so they don't revolt. And that's a very, that's a very common sense way to prevent revolution. Simply give the workers who want change, okay, an option to, advocate for change non-violently through voting and through, gaining representatives, as opposed to, ignoring them and then having them, fight and revolt. Okay, so this is the Great Reform Bill, is expanding the electorate, expanding the number of representatives in these areas, and allowing these workers in these manufacturing cities, in these factory districts, to vote, okay, and pick their representatives. All right, so this Great Reform Bill, ladies and gentlemen, is going to expand the size of England's voters by 50%. Whoa, big time change. That's huge, and that is very much democratic. Okay. However, we know there's just like what we saw in the French Revolution, there's always a caveat, ladies and gentlemen. Property was still a qualification for voting, and gender was as well. Women do not have the right to vote. Okay, we are still, and this is showcasing continuity, right? Women are still being ignored, and we've talked about that all the way from Christine de Pizan, all the way through Mary Wollstonecraft, Olympe de Gouges, right? Women are still being omitted from the political process, but that will be changing soon. And this bill also, ladies and gentlemen, is not necessarily a victory for middle-class workers in urban areas as well as rural districts. As rural districts, were expanded as well, and they were dominated by the nobles. So this wasn't necessarily a huge victory for the middle class, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, but what's important is this bill is going to allow for a wider variety of property owners, a wider variety of different socioeconomic classes to be represented in the House of Commons. So you're seeing the House of Commons look a lot more like England looks, if that makes sense. You're seeing more representation. All right, you're not just seeing nobles, and you're not just seeing people who make a lot of money. You're seeing, people who make less money, who do have some property, but may not make as much money as some of the traditional people who have been allowed to be in the House of Commons. So, it's not it's not a huge victory. Not everyone can still vote. Okay, not everyone can be a representative and participate within the House of Commons. But this bill is allowing for more of the electorate to participate, more representation, and this bill makes the House of Commons look a lot more like what England looks like during this time. Okay, which is important for us. Okay, other reforms, labor. This is huge, and this is again, Liverpool, Earl Grey, these leaders in Parliament listening to the people, having a good understanding of the pulse of the UK, having a good understanding of the pulse of the people, especially the workers, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see the Factory Act of 1833. You need to highlight this, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. No child labor for a child under the age of 9. Child labor laws. You're seeing families get really upset with their kids being hurt in factories, losing a hand, not being educated, okay? Child labor. So we're going to start to see some child labor laws. Really important. Slavery is going to be abolished in the British West Indies in 1833. The Poor Law of 1834 is going to require healthy, unemployed workers to live in workhouses. Going to give housing, ladies and gentlemen. The Mines Act, prohibiting, really important, child labor in the mines. Super, super, super important, ladies and gentlemen. The mines, the coal mines, ladies and gentlemen, were brutal, and this is prohibiting children from working in them. Okay, the 10-hour law of 1847. This is going to limit the work hours for women and children to 10 hours a day. We're going to see the Chartists, ladies and gentlemen, which sought universal suffrage, and eventually we're going to see more and more people advocating for the right to vote. But these are huge laws, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The Factory Acts, the Mines Acts, the 10-hour Acts, really important as we are seeing Great Britain listen to the people. And this is the way they prevent revolution. All right, this is the way they prevent it. Right here, boom. All right, you want less of a workday? Boom, we'll go from 16 hours, 18 hours to 10 hours. Boom. All right, parents are really worried about their kids working. All right, kids under the age of 9 cannot work. All right, and eventually, as we see education be compulsory, we're going to see that those laws change. Okay, so really, really important, ladies and gentlemen, really important. Legislation being passed. We're going to see the corn laws repealed in 1846. The anti-corn law league will argue for lower food prices. We're going to see the navigation laws repealed in 1849. That's going to be the official end of mercantilism in England. But we are seeing England get out in front of problems. England get out and solve issues that the people want to be solved, and that will prevent revolution. That's what I'm really trying to get at. Preventing Ireland from revolting, preventing the workers from revolting, instituting some major reforms to deal with that, ladies and gentlemen. Very important for us, okay? All right, we'll stop here for today, ladies and gentlemen. A short lecture today. In the next lecture, I will talk about the revolution spreading, ladies and gentlemen, to Latin America, to the Americas, okay? Thank you so much.